Hello and welcome to the Sias du Plessis show. Thanks to everyone that has liked and subscribed. A shout out to our partners at Betway. Now, joining me today on the show is a man that has played for several South African clubs. He's represented one, but never got onto the pitch. That's a story we'll talk about a bit later on. But he has had a fantastic career. 15 years, a loyal servant, a wonderful ambassador for the sport, and used to scoop ice cream for a living. We'll get into that just now. Thanks for watching the Sias du Plessis show. Let's get into it. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going on what I've heard about the ice cream scoop story, right? But before we get into that, how is life? Congrats on the content creation, on all the things. How's life at the moment?
Awesome, man. I stopped playing, sort of agreed to part ways with Spurs a couple months ago, and I haven't known what to do with myself, basically. My wife's very happy I'm knocking around the house on a Saturday and Sunday. She doesn't know what to do with me. It's been fantastic. Got young kids and everything, so I've been able to do the school run, and it's been beautiful.
A couple months is still fresh. How is retirement? Is it weird? Is it something that you're still grappling with? Because I know a lot of athletes, especially South African footballers who don't earn the big bucks, who haven't played overseas, who played here. It's not an easy transition. But at the same time, I think after 15 years, that's impressive. Congrats on a stellar career, man.
Yeah, shot. Yeah, no, look, retirement is always, in South Africa, it's like one contract away, and you never know what's going to come in. When I started to flirt with the NFD, did a couple of years in the NFD, that was always for me, and I tell all the guys, go down to the NFD, use it as like a transition period, because you'll work 3-4 hours a day. You'll do a morning shift, and then you can go do anything else. And that's what I've been doing for probably the last 5, 6, 7 years. You speak about ice cream. I've always been hustling on the side because I was just terrified of when is the last contract. So when I went down to the NFD, that was a real kick up the arse that now you better start looking at what else you're going to do. And we started building stuff. So I was luckily in a position now where I could say goodbye to football, and I don't want to say I don't miss it, but I was prepared for it to end.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing, because so many footballers are robbed through injury or, maybe a bad contract or whatever it may be, and the curtain comes down very quickly. And when you're in that moment, you're playing in the highest tier of South African football, you're going, this is great. This will go on forever, right? And it's training session, game, camp, training session. The next thing, you're flirting with, well, we can't quite offer you the same deal. Another club's looking at you, and the NFD is the next option. And I suppose for a lot of people, that's a serious reality check.
Yeah. And look, that's the reality of most professional sporters. It literally can be one person's opinion of you. So you could be flying high, coach in place, the club decides to change the coach, and then a new coach that comes in says, this guy's not for me, and there you go. And it's as quickly as that, and one guy's opinion could basically end your career. And the NFD compared to the PSL financially is a big hit, but it's still a little bit of a cushion, and you can still use it as a platform to build other things. So that's what I always say to the guys that are sort of thinking maybe they haven't found a PSL contract. Just don't stop playing, or don't sit around waiting for a contract, go unemployed for a couple months. Go to the NFD, keep yourself ticking over, and then start something on the side and see where that takes you. How's
that received? Because for some guys, they're like, what is this guy talking about? I'm going to play for 20 years, right?
Yeah. It's also some guys, it's their identity. This professional footballer, they play on TV. They're these big personalities, and it's humbling. Now you must step back, and the NFD, maybe they feel like it's below them. But for me, it was it's a job, and it pays me better than what a lot of my friends were earning in a day job, working 9 to 5, and I'm going to only have to do it for 2-3 hours in the day. And then I can go home and work on something else. And so it's a no-brainer. I can still do something I love, stay fit. They're going to pay me to stay fit. And then I can still work. It's why wouldn't I do it?
This is such a cliched question, and I apologize in advance, but I have to ask, what do you miss most? Is it the 90 minutes? Is it game day? Is it the camaraderie?
Towards the end, it definitely became just game day.
Yeah.
like the monotony of the training every day and the warm-ups, like I used to hate warm-ups with a passion towards the end because like there's only so many leg swings and so many times you can touch your toes. Like, I just used to dread warm-ups. And like towards the end, you were doing pre-activation and then activation. It was just like all the sports scientists were just taking over, and you just think, just give me 2 laps and let me start playing. So you used to spend like an hour warming up. So I used to hate that. But yeah, look, it was just game day, the adrenaline from game day, like going through that, and the dressing room, like nowhere else do you, like, can you walk into a dressing room and have a laugh with your mates for like 30 minutes every day before training. You can't replace that in a workplace.
I wanted to find out, like, when you started out your career, if someone had said to you, Mike, you're going to play 15 years in South African football, would you have sort of gone, cool, this is absolutely the plan? Or you were like, 15 years? Maybe just take me back to when you started your professional career and sort of looked ahead at 15 years is incredible. Once again, well done.
Yeah, so, I would have snapped your hand off if you offered me 15 years as a professional back when I mean, just to become professional in the first place was a dream come true, and to be able to sustain that for as long as I did and get lucky with injuries. And as I said, there's a lot of opinions that can affect your trajectory of your career. So I was fortunate enough that the right coaches were there in the right places at the right time. There were a lot of little incidents, lucky things that happened that put me on the right path. There's like some things you think like it was just meant to be. The one situation I always think of, when I was at Orlando Pirates, I went on loan to Wits as a right back because I'd played like a couple games for Pirates at right back. I was never a right back. I grew up a centre midfielder, but Wits now needed a right back and they signed me from Pirates because they thought I was a right back. And the first game of the following season, they had forgotten that their holding midfielder had got a suspension from the previous season. So we'd prepped the whole preseason, 6 to 8 weeks on me playing right back. And then on the day of the game, they got notified the centre midfielders can't play. He's got 4 yellow cards. So they literally, like, on the day they knew I had played there in the past, they were like, Mike, you're going to have to play centre midfield against Kaizer Chiefs in the MTN 8.
Yeah. Like,
on the day. And it went well, and I never played right back again. And that was, like, if that never happened, I don't know where I would be now. Like, It's just one moment. And there's so many of those that you can look back over your careers, like, there's a lot of luck involved.
And signing for Pirates, I mean, one of the biggest clubs in South Africa, on the continent, that must have been like a dream come true sort of thing. I mean, was that one of those moments where you had to pinch yourself,
So Pirates was more of a gradual thing because I was in the academy from when I was 12.
Yeah.
So Plessis, the head of the academy, was always saying to me, like, you will go to the first team, you are going to go to the first team, and sort of driving me the whole time. So that always was, I wouldn't say on the cards, but a possibility. And so when that eventually did happen, and then my first ever game was just like thrown into the deep end against Kaizer Chiefs in like a Soweto derby. That's not how I expected it to play out. So there was some crazy things and those crazy experiences. But that I felt like it was building up for a long time, and it was a dream come true. I supported Pirates before I even joined the club. My dad used to take me to like Orlando Stadium and to the old FNB Stadium to watch Pirates games. He was a Pirates supporter. So for that to happen, I was like, it was. I used to write that in like when you used to be asked at school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I've got like little pictures of when I was a child of like skull and crossbones, like as a child wanting to play for Pirates as a kid. So it was magic.
So, I mean, that moment of progressing through the academy and then eventually, like you said, being thrown into the deep end, that must be special because, as you say, a lifelong Pirates fan. And I look around at the Premier League, and there's not often that you see one club players, I think a Stevie G sort of thing, it's quite a rare thing. But I know you weren't a one club player, but you were always a Pirates supporter. Then you were in the academy, and then you signed for them. I mean, that's what I say, stuff of dreams, stuff of legend,
Yeah, and it entrenches you in football culture as well because you experience so much. I mean, as a kid, you'd go play in like township tournaments, and every weekend I was playing in Soweto and Alex, and we're playing derbies even as 14, 15-year-olds against Kaizer Chiefs, and you start to feel that rivalry already as a child. And I learned so much about South African football just through being at Pirates. And the reason I actually ended up at Orlando Pirates in the first place because Pitso Mosamani actually saw me playing when I was 11 or 12. And he spoke to my dad. He's like, your son's got talent, but he needs like more skill, more like ability on the ball. And he's like, you're not going to get that at your traditional white clubs, your Randburg or your Old Parks where I was. He's like, you need to go to one of the traditional black clubs. And Orlando Pirates was one of the options. And that's exactly what I did. So it was actually off the back of his advice that sort of pushed me in that direction. And yeah, that's where we started.
Listen, I mean, there's not many white guys in the Betway Premiership. Was that something that was a transition for you? I mean, was it like from a cultural point of view, was it difficult, or were you just accepted as one of the lads and that was it and you got on with football?
It was tough at the Pirates Academy, I will be honest. I mean, it was a language barrier because also Pirates brought guys from all over the country. So you're talking about guys from like KZN, and some of the guys wouldn't even be able to speak English. So communication was a problem, but from an early age already, it wasn't about going there to make friends or to socialize. I was going there because I wanted to be a professional footballer. So at times, and maybe it wasn't the most enjoyable stuff. While I saw my mates playing rugby on the weekend with all their buddies and going and like all this camaraderie and like all the chias, and football for me was like a means to an end. Yeah. So it wasn't always that fun, but like I knew why I was doing it. So it was tough, but Pirates then prepared me because I was so entrenched in the culture, the singing before the games. I knew all the songs. I knew all, like, it forced me to dance like in the dressing room and like all these amazing experiences. And now I actually can't get up for a game if I don't sing before a game. It's like I've got to get this stuff started. It's like, hey boys, like where's the volume? Like let's start singing. Like that's part of my pre-game prep, and it's all because of Pirates.
I mean, we always speak of Muti and whatever happens in it. I'm sure you have your fair share of experiences. Speaking to Matthew Booth, he's had his, Andre Arendse, everyone has shared their various stories. I mean, that must have been quite something to experience.
Yeah, so guys always ask me that because they know I played for Pirates, but it was actually at AmaZulu where I got my first like real experience. And like, so there were actually a couple funny moments where you got asked to go to you're in a hotel, very nice hotel, like beachfront hotel, and you think, okay, well, but someone calls you, say, go to room 620, and you get there, and there's a guy in a loincloth standing there. You think, this is interesting. Like, but I never had a thing like I didn't believe in it, so I didn't like. A lot of the more religious guys will say like, no, they're not going to do it. I was always like, for me, it makes a good story and a bit of a laugh, and so like get in the bath and. You don't really know what's in that bathtub. It's
really, what does it look like?
Yeah, no, it looks like a dirty river, basically.
Like brown, and stuff floating in it, and
then you read like Muti stories in the newspapers and stuff, and you're like, you don't want to see a fingernail there or something. Like it's scary. Like, but anyway, we get in the bath, and now you're throwing a bucket and you're throwing it over your head, and while you're doing this, you're wishing what must happen in the game the next day. There, I'm shouting like, I'm going to score a hat trick tomorrow, like throwing the butt. Obviously, it didn't work, but it was crazy. I mean, there was a couple times. I mean, I remember one quite clearly where we were in Durban on the promenade and at Blue Lagoon. I mean, this is somewhere like at 5 p.m. There's like traffic, like there's people running up and down doing their evening jogs, and there we were, the whole AmaZulu outfit, kit off in the lagoon, like, and I'll never forget, like the weekend after we did that, like 2 of our guys couldn't play because they'd cut their feet like on the rocks in the lagoon. I was like, guys, I don't know if this stuff's working for us. So if anything, it's actually proving a bit of a problem. But there was some crazy things.
I mean, but the Muti culture is still strong in South African football and it's deeply rooted in the history of it, superstitious or not, Were you superstitious at all? I mean, I hear stories of guys who had to lift toilet seats and leave them up and all sorts of things.
I suppose just like more routine based, where I'd say like I needed to call my mom before the game, and that's something I did like every game before my whole career. Like it would just be like a quick 1 minute phone call, like how's the mom? I'm on the way to the stadium, and that's just something that always stuck with me.
Yeah,
and like I'd do like 2-3 minutes like of just like silence, put headphones in and not listen to anything, but just so no one like talking to me for like 2-3 minutes before a game. It was just things like that, but not so much like superstition. But eventually when you've done it for so long, you just get into this like, okay, here we go again, like the triggers that like set off the next thing.
And is it a feel thing, like the ball on the foot sort of thing, or the feet in a little short sprint, just to get that initial nerves out the way?
For me, it was a tackle. Like, if I got into a tackle early and got into like a good 50-50 or something, that would always like trigger like, I'm in the game. Couple simple passes and get a tackle in, and then I'm in.
In the mix, dialed in here.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel during your playing career, like when you came up against you've played against some amazing players, you go like, crap, I'm in for a shift here. Like, I'm going to have to raise my game, because if I don't, I'm going to be left behind and we're going to probably lose.
Yeah, no, a couple of times there were, just to mention it, like Surprise Moriri was one where you just knew every time he touched the ball, and these guys feels like they've got eyes in the back of their head. Like Surprise especially, you'd think like, okay, he hasn't seen me here, I can steal this ball. He knows where I am, and he's rolling me, or he's got a touch here, or he sold me the wrong direction. Teko was exactly the same. But the one thing with Teko as well is like everyone saw the beautiful, skillful side of his game, but didn't realize how fit he was as well. Okay. So it's one thing with like Surprise, who's just like walking around, like, and you can sort of track him and you can see where he is. Like Teko, you want to find him, but he's just moves so much and he moves around all the time. And I consider myself pretty fit, but Teko, to find him and to track him would be so hard. And then eventually when you did get hold of him, he was so tricky that like you just couldn't get close to him. So those are two that like as number 10s where I just thought like, no, rather not. Like, yeah, tough guys to play against.
I assume game plan wise, coaches are like, Mike, that's your man. Make sure you are rash today on him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose man marking sort of went out of the window, but if they started to shine in the game, then obviously the finger starts to, like you, the holding midfielder, like, why is Teko getting on the ball all the time? Why is he making them play? And then you got to sort that out. So, yeah, it always became a problem, but they were good, man. And you just sometimes had to respect how good they were, and you just try to do your best and see what you could do.
Looking around the South African football at the moment, who's catching your eye? Because there are some ridiculously talented players. You look around, Sundowns, Pirates, Chiefs, Stellenbosch, wherever it is, there's ridiculous talent. Who sort of catches your eye, or who do you enjoy watch playing? Because I think we're actually spoilt for choice when it comes to entertainers right now as it stands.
Yeah, no, there's a very exciting thing happening in South Africa at the moment. We are in a really, really good spot where our national team's performing. Pirates is doing well in the continents, Delhi's, Sundowns, all doing so well. We just need Chiefs to catch up, but I mean, or we don't. But yeah, like there's so much young talent, and I mean, Chiefs and Pirates, their main guys are youngsters.
Yeah.
If you want to mention a couple names, I mean, Morton, for me, when I saw him playing a couple times on TV, I thought, okay, this boy's got something. But more recently, since I've had the time, I've traveled to Pirates games and watched him play in person. And the things he does when you're not watching is where you'll get so impressed with him. His movement, he just drifts into like these really dangerous pockets where it's in between the centre-back and the full-back, and neither of them can really track him. And then he just gets on the ball and he causes so much trouble. And Vilakazi and Shabalala at Chiefs are also similar types of players. Just so much ability, these guys. So it's very, very exciting. I mean, the one guy that's left now from Supersport overseas as well, Chandra Campbell, another one. I mean, these all guys.
He's a youngster, hey?
They're all young,
Yeah.
And they all so good. And I mean, we haven't had this like exciting of a group in a very long time. And it's amazing to see. And the South Africans are getting excited by it. And it's always like once the young talent starts coming through, it just ignites a little bit of something. I've never like this Soweto derby that's happening tomorrow. It's being marketed with the faces of Morton and Shabalala. Like, where would you ever see that in the past? Where it's like 21, 22-year-olds. Like, they're the face of the derby. Like, that tells you that these boys have done something special. And there's still so much growth there as well.
It's a different vibe, right? Like around South African football. I think, if I look at the feeling just from the man on the street, like there seems to be more football conversations happening, more like rivalries, and I mean, if you think a club like Wits doesn't even, obviously things changed there and disappeared and fell off the radar in a way, which was an incredibly sad story. But if you think the talent that was coming through there, I mean, you've played there. You look around though, and the Magezis, the Polokwane cities, and Richards Bay, everyone is sort of standing up for their club, right? And I know we have our big Soweto Giants, but there's an excitement, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like it's a palpable excitement around football in general that has people sort of taking notice, right? I mean, we're not seeing that negativity, or am I wrong on this?
No, you're 100% right. And that's why I've loved the transition into making content around South African football, because I want to highlight it so much, and you get the feedback from everybody that they're excited about the game. But just, in terms of the interactions, and you can just feel that there's something special happening. And it all starts with our national team, because we all know the common story, South Africans, the rugby guys, the cricket guys, like laughing at Bafana, a bunch of losers, as our sports minister used to call them. Like, we're no longer a bunch of losers. Yeah. I mean, we did very well in the last AFCON, could have gone all the way. The way we're lining up for this next AFCON at the end of the year, I'm very, very excited. I think there's massive potential to do something. The fact that the World Cup will have more teams, we have to be at the next World Cup, at the next World Cup as well. Like, I just can't find a reason why you shouldn't be so excited about South African football. I just hope we can keep Hugo Bruce for as long as possible, because what he's doing with our national team is special. He knows the youngsters, and he's stubborn to the point where people have said to him, why is this one playing? Why is that one not playing? Why do you keep sticking with this guy? But he knows his guys, and he's proved everyone wrong to say, like, this is the team I put together. This is a team that I trust. And now everyone's sort of stepping back and say, okay, you're in control. You've shown us you can do what. But now we need to back him and give him the time to take us to the next World Cup and get us out the group and get South Africans excited about Bafana again.
I remember when he was appointed, and in his opening press conference, he said, if we don't qualify for AFCON, you can kill me. He said World Cup was a different story, and obviously we missed out. But he then, I think, was 2019, or was it no? I'm trying to think, was it 2019? No. One. So previous to this one, where we reached the quarterfinals, and then obviously we got bronze.
Yes.
But I remember at that stage he was like, if we don't make AFCON, you can kill me. And I was like, what is this guy saying? And he was very clear that he was there to develop this next generation. And people crucified him. I mean, remember, the oldest coach, who's this guy from where, what is his credibility? I mean, he won AFCON. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. And here we are, and we're reaping the rewards.
Yeah. No, but that's what you need, because obviously there's so many opinions in South African football, and you have all the strong allegiances to different clubs or whatever. He's got his guys, and he believes in certain guys, and even when they're out of form, and this is something I've said for the longest time, is we don't just pick the flavor of the week. Like, pick your guys, pick your 30 guys that you rely on all the time. You know how to get the best out of them. You build a relationship with them. They build a relationship with each other, build a strong squad. And I mean, you look at Germany when they won the World Cup, that crew all came through together. Yeah. And you always speak about these generations that go on to succeed and do great things. We have the potential to do that, but we got to keep them together. If we're going to chop and change all the time the way we have in the past, we're just never going to get the consistency.
You think we can win it?
AFCON?
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, Sundowns is one of the best teams on the continent. But Orlando Pirates, one of the best teams on the continent. The only difference is we don't have the big hitters playing in Europe.
The Marcellus.
Yeah. So you look at that Egyptian team, and you got one at Liverpool and you got one at Man City, and you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, they've got the big hitters, but we've got a squad, and there's no reason why we can't go all the way. But yeah, that would be our one downfall, is that we don't have somebody we can hang our hat on and say, like, he's one of the best in the world. But hopefully in the future.
Let's touch on your content creation, because I found it fascinating. That's how I was like, what is Mike doing on TikTok? And it's like, this is fantastic, you know? So I mean, I know there was the podcast, and that's taken shape and it's really come on nicely, but TikTok seems to me like where you found your niche right now.
Yeah, I never thought I'd ever say that. I mean, like it's funny. I walk around with my wife at the shops, and then like people come up to me like, "Yeah, you Mike Morton," and then be like, "Yeah, yeah." And normally they would say the soccer player, and I was like the TikToker. Okay, I never ever thought that's like I played football for 15 years, but now I'm known as the TikToker. So yeah, it's an exciting platform. I enjoy the short, sharp content. I think this next generation, the attention spans, it serves them pretty well. And how can we communicate all these amazing things we're talking about in South African football and all the knowledge that I feel I've accrued over the years? How do I communicate that to the next generation and give back to the next generation where on the platform where they want to watch content? Like they're not reading newspapers. They're not necessarily going to watch a 60-minute podcast, but they will consume a 30-second clip.
100%.
And so, yeah, serve it where they want to consume it, I suppose.
But I love the analysis that you do. You almost break it down for us who have never played the game at a high level, and you go, well, did you notice this? And it's almost like you are educating us to watch the game differently. Is that one of the objectives because of the knowledge that you have? I mean, it's 15 plus years of IP.
Yeah, it is that as well. But what I also grew so frustrated with is you have this, often the youngsters in South Africa, they watch the English Premier League and they obsessed with the English Premier League, which I love. Yes, watch the best players in the world. You have to. But the only way you're ever going to get there is you're going to have to go through our South African system first. You're not going to bypass the South African system. And if you think that you're so good that you're going to that you can just jump at the South African system, it's not going to happen. Like we have great players and they've have to do the hard yards. So if you're going to end up playing in South Africa, you got to watch South African football. I mean, we do some like workshops with kids, and I asked them like, who are your favorite players? And they never mentioned South African players. I'm just thinking like, aim here, look here, and I want to highlight South African football because I feel like football lovers, people who love football, there's no better time to get into South African football. It's exciting. Go to games, go to stadiums, feel the vibe. I've almost never experienced a guy go to a stadium, a Pirates, Chiefs, a stadium with good vibes where they haven't walked away and said, I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be like pushing that on because I feel like people don't expose themselves to that. They just watch the Premier League. They don't go out and they'll go to the cricket. They'll go to the rugby. It's like, go watch football, go watch South African football. And if I can, in some small way, make people want to go to stadiums again and watch South African football, turn on the TV and watch Pirates and Chiefs tomorrow, like that's what I'd want to do because I know that once they do it, they'll get hooked.
You say that they can't bypass the SA football system. But for us to get those marquee players that, like you say, hang your hat on at an AFCON, they have to go through our South African system, but then they have to go and play overseas and be exposed to that level of football. And that, I'm taking nothing away from the Betway Premiership. I'm just saying it is a huge jump.
Yep.
And we've seen guys who have gone across, Foster's gone to Burnley, Plessis. They get there and the intensity is different. The training, the environment, the weather is pretty crap at times. January or December in the UK is not fun.
Yeah.
But you've somehow got to overcome that to be one of the best on the continent and in the world.
Yeah.
So do you still advocate that players, if they get the opportunity, have to go and cut their teeth overseas?
They have to. It's the reason it's even more essential for them to go is because if you stay, you block that spot for the next guy to come through.
Okay.
Like if you look at Brazil, it's a conveyor belt because if you have one good season in Brazil, off you go.
Yeah.
Like it's just, there's like one of their biggest exports in their country is footballers. So they just go and then the next youngster comes through. But in South Africa, I mean, Kune, one of the best keepers we've ever seen in South Africa, but he never left. And so the second choice at Kaizer Chiefs never played for 15 years. It's like, how do we know how good the second choice could have been? And if our best players never leave the country, they always block the spot for the next guy. We have to get to the point where we are a conveyor belt and our best players leave the country. And what's an interesting thing that's happening now is North Africa. A lot of our guys are moving to North Africa, which is it's not Europe.
He's up there and he's coaching.
Yeah, Fadlu Davids is in.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean our coaches are performing outside the borders. So yeah, it's a nice trend that I'm seeing that South African players are leaving to North Africa. I think it's a different level, whether it's necessarily better, I'm not sure, but they're leaving and they're opening spaces for the guys that can come through now behind them. So that's one of the main reasons why I feel like guys have to go. And then yes, once you get there, then you see how high you can go.
That's actually a fascinating. I've never thought of it that way. It has to become a talent pipeline.
Yeah.
And I think when you're getting paid 250,000 Rand or 300 or 500,000 Rand a month, living in South Africa, I mean, in one of the best countries in the world, very difficult to leave. But I suppose that burning desire to be the best, you have to find a way to get overseas.
Yeah. I mean, I would never say that Sundowns is a problem, but it's because they pay so well.
Yeah.
But why would you leave and go to a smaller league in Europe and potentially earn less and move your family and do all those things when you could earn the same, if not more,
Play on the continents
at Mamelodi Sundowns?
Yeah.
They make it difficult, which is, of course, amazing that one of our clubs pays that well and they reward our footballers for doing the job that we love. But yeah, it makes it tough for them to leave. And then we just you hold. I mean, like Tebogo Mokoena should not be playing in South Africa.
Yeah,
he's one of the best players that South Africa's seen in a very long time, and he could be playing anywhere else in the world. But Mamelodi Sundowns pays him very well, and it's hard for him to leave.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah,
I think. Looking at sort of your career, do you have any regrets, or I mean, are there instances you look back and I'm putting you on the spot where you think maybe that could have changed something, or had I rather signed for them, or I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Sias, I'm actually probably on the other end of the spectrum where I believe like I always looked at myself feeling like I completely over-exceeded the amount of talent that I had. Like,
good for you.
Yeah. Look, I never ever believed I was that talented at football. I just worked really hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a person like me, like a type of footballer that I am, like I ticked a lot of the boxes that I wanted to tick. And maybe I should have aimed higher, but like I was also a realist. There were footballers that were more talented than me. So I'd never look back and say like, maybe I should have done this. I mean, I managed to tick a lot of the boxes, and the fact that I managed to play for Bafana, even if it was once or twice, like I did that. And coming from where I came from and sort of how I view myself as a footballer, I think like I maximized my potential. So I don't have any regrets.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's refreshing to hear, because you do have some players, and there's a couple of footballers that have come in here and I've asked them, and they were like, well, when I was offered this deal and I stayed for more money, I should, and it's really refreshing to hear that you feel fulfilled, right? That you've experienced it, you've given it 150% each time. I mean, and when I watched you play, it was always like, I thought, that guy's a warrior. Like he's the type of guy you want defending a corner or attacking in the 88th minute where you need a goal or you need to stop a goal. And I was always thinking like, Mike's one of the guys that he would leave it all out there on the pitch. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I suppose that did sort of was the way my game was looked at by a lot of people. And that's what I built my game on, because I knew that once you sort of build that mold around yourself, then you can't let people down. Then it's like you are Mr. Reliable. You have to be. You can't. With me, you're never going to give. Look at me and say that's a 10 out of 10 performance. But if I can be a 7 out of 10 every day, then that's gonna, at least you can rely on me. And I was often never injured, so I was always available as well. So you just become. There's a massive trust factor as well, that I was always there. I was always what I think was a good teammate. Also helps, like not a problem in the dressing room. So just built my career on like just trying to be a good pro. And so that's why I feel like
I think you're the example of a good pro, like the example of a good pro, because I don't think there's one coach out there right now that if you said you could have a player who gives you 7 out of 10 for 38 games in the season or whatever it is, or you could have a player that gives you a 3 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 for 50% of the season, he would take the 7 out of 10 every single time.
Yeah, sure. The problem is in the attacking third, you do need.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like my 7 out of 10 is not going to put the ball in the top corner, but yeah, I 100% get what you're saying. Like a coach knows what they're getting when they get a player like
me. Is there a coach or several coaches that you resonated with like properly in your career? I mean, looking here, there was Pirates, Wits, Maritzburg, Supersport, Amazulu, All Stars, Spurs. You know, there's a whole host of clubs here. And if South African football's anything to go by, it can be a bit of a merry-go-round of coaches.
Yeah, no, I've obviously played for my fair share of coaches, but some of the guys that really stuck out. Roger Desal was somebody who gave me my first PSL game at Wits, and he's the one who sort of changed the trajectory of my career, so I'll always be grateful to him. And probably the most fun I've had at a football club. He just makes such a great environment at a football club. So he's a great guy and someone I really, really enjoyed playing for. And I played again for him at All-Star, at Umoya again in the NFD. He actually saved, when COVID happened, I didn't have a club. He sort of gave me another lifeline, and that was what led me to play another 5-6 years. So I've got a lot to be grateful for with Roger. But the most successful time in my career was with Stuart at Supersport. And I rate him as the best coach that I played under.
Still in touch?
Yeah, so he actually came crazy. Like, he reached out of nowhere and said, I've been following your podcast. Can I come on? I was like, what? Stuart Baxter's asking me to come on my podcast. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, so that just like, it also just shows you what type of human being he is. Like, obviously it means nothing. There's no skin off his back to come on my podcast, but he, like, out of the goodness, just saw what I was trying to do, and he thought, like, let me help him out. And so there was caught up for a good hour, and he's like, he mentored a lot of guys through South African football. And when you speak to anybody who's played for Stuart Baxter, there's very few people that ever say a negative thing about him. You learned a lot when you played for him.
My relationship with him was purely journalist coach, right? But he always made time. He always called sometimes a spade a shovel, but a fantastic human being and a great, just, I think, example of someone looks after themselves, conducts themselves well, they're on time, an ultimate professional in a coach's example. And I have a lot of time for Stuart Baxter.
Yeah, and that rubs off on everyone that works in and around him. And he doesn't accept, like, if you're not going to be that type of pro, and the guys get weeded out really quickly. Yeah. But he built such a strong culture. That was the one thing, is that at Supersport, like, we actually ended up, we were such a tight-knit group because everyone was towing the line. And he found a way to make everyone happy. I mean, at a football club and in sports in general, the guys that are not playing are not happy.
Yeah.
That is the reality. But he managed to keep everyone involved. Like, a lot of the times, the day after a game, the assistant coach will take the training session with all the bomb squad who don't play. And it's like the worst thing. You're going to go in the bomb squad, like the assistant coach is going to take you, probably going to do a bit of running.
Yeah.
But he made a conscious effort on the day after the game. He was there with the guys that didn't play, with the bomb squad, and he'd be coaching them. And and he'd be speaking to them all the time, like, this is what I want from you. That's what I want from you. And then you're like, okay, when I get my chance, like, he believes in me. And you had the whole squad, and it's the first time I've seen in my career where you have a whole squad of players that wanted to play for him, even the guys that were on the outskirts. Often the guys that are not playing are like, stuff this guy, like, he doesn't like me, he's a crap coach, whatever. It's like, you never got that with him. He just got buy-in from everyone. Yeah. That's what made him so good.
Talk about teammates. I mean, those are friendships, I suppose, that last post-football. Who was your sort of partner in crime, or there are a couple of you guys that used to, I mean, you speak very fondly of the Supersport days, and I can think of a few of the players that were there. You guys really presented this unit. And I think it was a collective of like-minded individuals that were determined to achieve success, but have a little bit of fun while working hard.
Yeah, no, there was such a great group of guys. I mean, we'd go out socially as well together, and some crazy fun experiences. Tusopala is one that comes to mind. I mean, he's one of my favorite teammates, one of the best storytellers you need to get him on. Yeah, he's unbelievable and one of the best guys. And Brad Grobela was always my roommate at Supersport, and I mean, we don't need to say much more about Brad. But there were some great characters there playing with Dean Furman as well. So it was a good bunch of guys. Yeah,
we had Brad on, and I think Brad can be quite a little bit shy at times, and he dodged me for a while, and he won't admit
he's dodging me as well.
He dodged it for a while, and then he was like, "Okay, I'm coming in." So I just hope speedy recovery, and also a fantastic human being. Moving on to your love of Liverpool, is this league done and dusted? Are you guys taking this back to Anfield?
If you ask me if we could be in this league position when Jurgen Klopp resigned midway through last year, I'd say there's no way that we'll be topping the league by 6-7 points with a game in hand. It's unbelievable what's happened. The drop-off from City is obviously no one could have predicted that. But the way that he's just taken this squad, and it's almost he sort of turned down the chaos of Jurgen Klopp and brought just refined the Jurgen Klopp style. There's still the press is still there, the intensity is still there, but we're just more controlled in possession. And what he's done with that, and I mean Gravenberg has been a sensation. No one would have predicted that he would have been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League at the beginning of the year. A lot of things have come right. I mean, we didn't sign a single player in the transfer window. The second transfer window now, we haven't signed a player. And there we go. We just top of the Champions League group, top of the Premier League.
Life's good, right?
It's unbelievable. Like Liverpool fans, we're pinching ourselves.
I think Slaughter's just brought a calmness too. Like you say, Jurgen Klopp was fired up and he was like, let's go, we're going to war. And I think Slaughter's just brought this calmness where everyone knows their roles. No one panics, and it's just trust the process, and you guys are showing that on the field. I think what's interesting for me is the conversation around Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Trent. The January transfer window looks like the three of them will still be around for the remainder of the season. However, I think it might change come the summer transfer window.
Yeah, I think they've locked in Virgil at least.
Yeah.
Which was the big one, the one that I was the most worried about.
Okay.
Yeah.
More than the Salah, Trent?
Virgil's a colossus. Like we've seen when he had the ACL injury, we fell apart.
Yeah.
Like he holds that team together. Look, you're never going to replace Salah's goals either. Like we need him as well. Yeah, and then you got Trent. We'd love to keep all three of them, but it feels to me like Trent's already gone. And Salah needs convincing. So I don't know. There's a lot of transfer policy talk at Anfield, and how much are they willing to spend, and can they give a long-term contract to a guy in his 30s, and whether they're going to budge on that it's tough. But every single game he plays, and every goal he scores, and every assist he makes a bigger case for why they should be giving him what he wants. So,
and I know it gives you great joy to see Everton aren't your rivals. Manchester United, the history, they have brought in a guy, Amorim, who I find incredibly refreshing. I love his honesty. I love the way he speaks. He's sticking to his guns, but he's taking shots. The club's taking shots. I know it's improved recently. Do you expect them to get better, or do you think that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get Manchester United back to even a sort of glimmer of themselves at times?
My worry is that the way he wants to play, there's very few players that can play in his system at United right now. He's going to need multiple transfer windows to bring in the players that he wants. And I just don't see how that happens overnight. That 3-4-3 or 5-3-2 that he wants to play is unique, and you need a certain style of player, and United don't have. And I think that's the reason he didn't want to come in January. And he told them he didn't want to come in January, and they were like, it was like take it or leave it situation.
Impossible situation.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously Sporting was on track to win another league, and but they made him take the job now, and you can all the quotes like, "This is the worst Man United team in history." This is like I think the other day I heard him say he's aged 10 years since he joined Man United. So it's not like there's a lot of negative press coming out there, but I love the fact that I think United fans are enjoying the fact that he's calling it as it is.
Yeah.
But there's some harsh truths they're having to swallow there. And then there's obviously it's not helped with the Rashford situation either.
We've got a few minutes, Mike. Let's look at Betway Premiership. Orlando Pirates obviously have been brilliant this season on the continent, domestically also picking up wins, closing the gap on Sundowns. But if you look into your crystal ball, is the Sundowns title to lose, or do you think Pirates are close enough that Sundowns are definitely looking over their shoulders?
These next 2 weeks are season defining. They got obviously Chiefs this weekend, and all form goes out the window for that one, we know. And then they got Sundowns next weekend. So they could either be above Sundowns after these two games, or 6 or 7 points behind. And Sundowns again in January have gone into the market again and reinforced massively. And it's just so tough to compete with them because they're just a juggernaut. Like you think like, okay, we got them here. We in the we're in the conversation here, and they just keep going and going and going. And then when you think that, well, they're starting to look weak here, then they sign another 3-4 world-class players, and it's going to be so tough to keep up with them. But they'll do themselves a big favor with back-to-back wins here. Then I'll start to believe.
Well, let's see what happens for both teams. I think I've enjoyed watching both of them play this season. All right, quick fire questions. All right. Try not to, I hope I'm not going to put you on the spot too much. Best ground you've played at?
Harry Kuala.
Toughest team to face?
Sundowns.
Toughest opponent?
Teko Modise.
Best feeling on a football field?
Winning a tackle.
Not scared of a tackle. In terms of Barcelona, Real Madrid?
I'm a Barca.
Liverpool to win Champions League or Premier League? If you had to choose.
Premier League.
Greatest Liverpool player of all time in your
Gerrard.
Didn't even have to. And then lastly, from my side, are you a braai guy or are you a pizza guy?
Probably a pizza guy.
Bush, beach.
Beach.
And lastly, when you want to chill, what do you do when you want to chill?
I have kids that don't chill. With young kids, 5-year-olds, twins. I don't chill.
Michael, thanks for coming, and I really appreciate it. I think you're doing a wonderful job on the TikTok content. Keep the podcast going. I mean, with Stuart Baxter endorsing you, I mean, that's fantastic. Keep up the great work. And I think, you know, when it comes to the ice cream story, can we just finish off with that? Like, maybe share with me how that came about, because you did mention you always had a hustle on the side. Scooping ice cream after training in Durban, I suppose, winning formula.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. It was probably the hardest I've worked in my life. So my wife and I, we decided to start an ice cream business in Durban. We thought it was good climate for it. And it just grew massively. We ended up with like 4 retail stores, over 100 wholesalers, and there I was after training, scooping ice cream till like 9, 10 in the evening and cashing up. And look, retail's not for sissies, but it was an incredible experience. I mean, I learned more in 6 months in the ice cream business than I did in my 4-year BCom management degree. So, it definitely taught me a lot about business and everything. It was an incredible experience. And then my kids came and we thought, we can't do this anymore. It was just too insane. Yeah.
Scoops are only 4 cones after a party or dinner, right?
Yeah. Maybe, when my kids get older, they can start working at the ice cream shop and I'll start that again.
Mike, thanks so much for your time. Congrats on a stellar career. I think you can be incredibly proud of yourself. You've represented these clubs with aplomb each time, and I can't wait to see what's next. Keep up the great work, and thanks for making time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in, and enjoy the derby.
Yeah, we'll do.
There we go. Thank you very much for watching the Sias du Plessis show. Michael Morton, of course, professional ice cream scooper. Only kidding. But like and subscribe. Of course, Spotify Africa. You can also check us out on Apple Podcasts. And it's proudly brought to you by Betway. We'll catch you again next time right here on the Sias du Plessis show.